I want to talk to you a little bit about the PixelKey. The PixelKey is a 4-button reprogrammable USB keyboard. Now, there are some USB keyboard projects out there, but the ones that I've found, you can't reprogram the keys that each button presses without going and recompiling the software and reloading everything. So that's one of the things that makes the PixelKey unique is through the host software program, you can reconfigure the keys to do whatever you want while it's plugged in at runtime and whatever. And I've also got what I call button groups, and that's a group of 4 button programs, settings that you can switch between so that you can use different keys for different applications. So this is the PixelKey. It's got a little microprocessor on it and a little mini USB-B jack on it. And then there's the header where all of the buttons and the grounds and all that kind of stuff are. That's what you connect to that. So I'll show you a little box that I made for this. I got 4 buttons, and what I use this for is I put it in the floor so I can press these buttons with my feet. I'll turn it over, show you. There's the little PixelKey right there, and then you can see the buttons. And I don't know if you can tell, but there's some resistors there, and those resistors are actually feeding or current limiting for the 5 for the LEDs that I have stuck in the buttons. Turns out these little buttons, which I got from Adafruit, by the way, got these little slots in them, and they're perfect for sticking like a white LED into, which is what I did here. And the little switch is just so I can turn the lights off if they get too annoying. But actually, I find that they're quite helpful whenever you have this thing under a computer desk, because it's usually dark under there. The PixelKey will support any kind of momentary push button, mechanical push button. It doesn't matter what kind it is as long as it's mechanical and it's a momentary push button. Make a board of any kind and mount it in whatever kind of enclosure you want. Let me plug this in, and I'll show you the software real quick. And then you can see the buttons lit up there. It's kind of cool. So here's the software when you pull it up. I've actually got another PixelKey plugged in, and I'll just demonstrate that. Whenever you have more than one plugged in, you can hit the rescan button if you plugged one in since you've ran the software. If you have more than one plugged in, you'll get this drop-down menu that will let you select which one you want to open. Well, I know that this little board right here is the 254, so we'll open that one. When you open it, it will tell you what firmware version that PixelKey is running, and which can be important because the firmware is upgradable. If I make bug fixes or add features, they can be used by anybody who wants to go through the upgrade procedure, which is very minor. The little board runs a bootloader called Micronucleus. It's a really, really cool bootloader. So here are the buttons, the little button group, button 0, 1, 2, and 3, and they're actually labeled that way on the header on the bottom of the PixelKey. And so you can configure the modifier keys you want each button to press, as well as the actual key you want it to press. And a quick note about the modifier keys. Whenever it sends a button press, like if you have 2 buttons pressed, it will send the modifier keys for both of those buttons combined. That may or may not matter to you, but anyway, it acts just like a keyboard, really, is I guess really the main point. But if you look here, there's this little thing called the key delay, and what the key delay does is when you press this particular button, button 0, which happens to be this blue button right here, when I press it, if I want the modifier keys on this button to be pressed slightly before the actual key is pressed, I can do that here by incrementing this key delay by 20 milliseconds, and I think I have it to where you can go up to 100 milliseconds. I found that there were there was at least one application that would not recognize a key cord with modifier keys unless you had a little bit of a delay and when the modifier keys were pressed and the actual key was pressed. So that's why that's there. So that's kind of an extra, it's an extra feature. And as you can see, it can be set on each button individually, which is really nice. So this is what I call a button group. This is button group 0 that we have right now. You can see the configuration for all 4 keys. And I have a couple of other button groups for different applications. So if I go to button group 1 and I say set button group 1, then it shows you what I have set up for button group 1. And I even have one for button group 2. And see there, I've got some key delays for that one. I believe button group 3 is empty right now. Yes, it is. But we can actually make it press some keys if we want to. And one other thing, this little button here that says set as default, this will write that button group, whatever the one that you want to set as the default, into the memory of the microcontroller, such that when you power it down and power it back up, it will come back to that particular button group. So you can have a default button group other than 0. And then here is that PixelKey ID, just in case somebody would ever want to plug more than one in. They could uniquely identify it by changing this number and setting that. And that's another thing that's saved in the processor's memory. And then to support all sorts of different kinds of buttons and whatever kind of stuff you want to do with it, I've got this debounce time, which can be set from 0 all the way up to, I think, like 160 milliseconds, which is kind of crazy, but it's there. I find that 40 works really good for these arcade buttons, and it gives, I don't get any kind of false positives, or I don't see any bounce whenever I'm doing that, so it's great. This button's here just to kind of read all 4 buttons, just in case, I don't know, something happens and you change a bunch of stuff, but you don't write it, and then you want to say, well, I don't want that stuff, and just read it back. You see there's an individual write button for each of the buttons that you can program. So if I wanted to make button 1, which would be this green button here, press the A key. That's all I have. That's all I have to do. And like I said, I'm in button group number 3. So in button group 3, button 1 will press the A key. And I can prove that to you by, we'll open up Sublime Text, use the keyboard now. I'll press the green button, and you can see it's pressing the A key. And then furthermore, I will go to a different button group set. Let's go to 0 because that had the that's Control V stuff. And so I'll set it, and then we see that the button group is different. And so now I can press button 2, which is the red one. Cursor, I don't know if you can see that, but the cursor will go up. I can press button 1, which is the green button, and it will just cut all of that line 1. It'll cut line 1 completely. I could press Control V, and it will paste that back in, and I can keep on pasting it back in. So that's how that works. And let's see, do I have any more button groups that are interesting? Not really. So basically, you can program the little guy from here. You can set which button group you want as the default whenever the thing powers on. And then the button groups, like I said, will let you change what the keys that are pressed for whichever application you want it for. Like, for example, this is actually, well, let's see, where's one? This is actually for VLC to do some control of the VLC, what is it called? The Video LAN player, the open source player. And so it's just kind of nice to be able to change the button group set so that you can do different stuff with different applications. So that is the PixelKey. Thanks a lot for watching.